balance, you'd still want to repair the eye that didn't
Absolutely.
work. Without that, it's just not going to work properly.
There's also a sense that comes with it though when I think about the progress that we can expect by putting some of this into play. If we do have a poorly visioning eye, we can train it to see clearer. We can maybe increase its ability to differentiate different strains of light, differentiate objects between far proximity and close proximity, for example. And it feels like maybe there is that potential training to increase the speed at which we can waltz and walk into a genius. Is there a sense that although there is a latent historical problem with the substratum of our brain, particularly the left brain, can we train it to where it is in its own function to optimize its ability to function better, even within the constraints of this dysfunction?
Because most of the problems are congenital, early development, I don't think it has much latent function, if any. However, what it can be trained to do is first of all, it can learn that it's got a problem and that it is a problem without blame. This is not about the left, demonizing the left hemisphere, even if that's how it sounds. It's just the way it is.
Sure.
So that can be part of its learning process. It can then learn or be trained to allow more access to the functionality that's in all of us. That it generally comes under the heading of conditioning or training, as you said. And so much of our culture's moved the other way, where we crush out the last vestiges of our humanity and creativity, and amongst kids. We take them at the same age, bung them in a concentration-like environment and fill their heads full of rational stuff, when all they want to do is have fun and play. And that's not even valued anymore. I mean, what are we here for? To be cogs in a big machine sort of thing, but that's how the left brain sees it.
2-year-olds in business school now.
Yeah, absolutely insane. So there's certain things that we can change in terms of our learning or concepts that are very left brain, that begin to facilitate and allow, not really enhancing its innate ability, it's allowing the access that's still there, and making it culturally acceptable. Putting in systems, currently we have education systems, well actually most of that's very detrimental.
Yes.
So it's not speeding up the shift in balance that children still have a little bit of. That's where we see most of the humanity. It does shift naturally because of the nature of the condition, and obviously there's ways to change that as well. But currently we're accelerating it. Well, at the very least we can train ourselves to maintain the access we've got for as long as possible. As some cultures did until recently, more tribal, more sort of intuitive and more nature connected. That still can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think there's much more function to be had out of it in its current state. The design's changed in the uterus. It's like a square wheel instead of a round wheel. Well, there's not much you can do with that.
So when I'm listening to you talk about the different hemispheres, the word exponential comes up for the right brain, and there seems to be a very slow procession when evolution is involved in a left brain. So it seems to be that the route we're looking for, of course, you want to nourish the brain, provide the biochemistry so that we can optimize it as much as possible, but cultivating and utilizing the aspects that function and start to switch on and activate the right brain. And it seems to be that's when we get the exponential progress and swift change.
Yeah, it's a combination. It's as I say, I mean, the basic limiting factors, as I proposed, are the left brain's structurally damaged. Its design is the main problem. Designed by that, I mean its development in the uterus.
Yes.
And there's not much can be done about that, and it's in charge. It can't really utilise all the phenomenal chemistry anymore. It's lost the structure to do that. However, the right brain can. It's limited by the suppression of the left hemisphere, and also nutrition, neurochemistry, and so on. So we can put these things back, and the combination of putting the things back that are missing and then inhibiting the left sounds harsh, but if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. That's where you have scope for really rapid change, experiential change. These are exactly the kinds of things that people try and describe in words when they've had some kind of spontaneous or technique-induced shift in dominance. And it's usually profound, it's mystical, it's phenomenal. That's where the profound genius comes from, the great insights. So yes, you're right. I mean, even tapping in a little bit blows our mind, you know, and that's probably only a little bit. So it is still all there, and yes, once we understand the mechanisms, actively creating that shift isn't going to be too difficult. In fact, our distant ancestors had a lot of the tools. We just happen to have legislated against them, as the left brain would, because they're threatening and frightened. It's frightened. It's threatened by anything that will shift its control, as it would be. You know.
I guess it's really easy to forget just how much control we do have in being able to shift our consciousness quickly and in the moment. I mean, for me, when I think about, you know, what shifts our consciousness more than anything else, well, the rise and fall of the sun. You know, nothing makes you want to sleep more than the sun falling, and it rises and you pick up. But the same thing's almost available, you know, when we talk about, you know, using various compounds, you know, whether they're kind of natural or artificial, whether it's a research or in personal reasons, to shift our consciousness and getting us to see the day in a complete new light, getting us to experience reality in a completely fresh, original way that we may have had no previous access to if we had continued with that dominance, as you say. And so the availability is so there. I think nothing could be more optimistic than to know that we still have access to a functioning full brain state.
There's a lot of function still remains, absolutely, and in fact I think it's quite telling how much prohibition and legislation has gone into making sure we maintain the current configuration, which clearly isn't working. It's not like the current configuration, well, it's not too bad, things on. It's an absolute disaster, basically. And yet there's masses of cultural, moral, social and legal legislation to prevent us changing the configuration. Now there's a big clue in that somewhere. A, why that's happening, but B, the very fact it can be done. If it couldn't be done, there wouldn't need any legislation. So the tools are there, they've existed for a long time, they've slowly been pushed away because of a threat, but at least we know they're there, or we wouldn't need the rules to make, well, you can't do it, you know, anything to do with pleasure, which is the right hemisphere, anything to do with altering a consciousness, chemical modification, anything to do with, you know, music, dance, sex, anything, they've all been prohibited bit by bit in various cultures because they shift your consciousness.
Absolutely.
So these things exist. And the clues are in the laws.
The clues are embedded in the economy and the very power structure of society, you know, and that's why, again, it's further proof of the kind of validity of, you know, what we're talking about here. It's underpinned in mechanisms of basic social control, and has been for thousands of years since we lost our ability to, I guess, differentiate between falsity and veracity.
Well, I think it's come across directly as the left brain took control, which I think it actually took control relatively recently. I think there's been this slow degeneration, but a relative balance, as many people allude to today. But it took a much greater dominance, probably in the region of 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, and it slowly created the world in its own image, which is inhumane because it's not human anymore. Sterile. You look at what it marvels at: big shiny buildings. The worst possible thing you could imagine putting a tropical primate in. You'd be prosecuted under current law if you were a zookeeper and you had no way, it wouldn't be allowed. And yet, oh, isn't it great? It doesn't even see what it's doing anymore. You know, it's but that's the kind of world that it's created. Reflects its own degeneration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's come across.
And legitimises it.
Yeah, basically, as it would. Say once you see it as a neurodegenerative condition. It's not that it's his fault. It's just the consequence of the separation from the chemical environment.
Basic cause and effect.
And we can put it back. And of course it will resist. That would be expected. That's an expected, a predictable symptom. You know, it's going to be frightened. But once you can find a language to explain in a way that makes sense even to the rational mind, then it becomes compelling to do something different.
Absolutely. Well, we live in fascinating times for sure, and I look forward to seeing you on television. I look forward to catching your meteorite rise with this information. I think you're going to do really, really well in the next few years anyway.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for this interview.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye, Tony.